Hi. I was just trying to fit this port strip into my notebook just after I fitted the other 5 or 6 cables that I always need to connect when I'm actually using this machine in the office. Last week we saw when we connected a PC together, we put it together from components, then got it up and running. We again had to connect something like 5 or 6 different cables. Now it looks easy enough when you show it very quickly on television, but actually you can spend a lot of time finding the right cables and connectors and putting them together. And what I'm going to take you through is how you get around to doing this and how today another technology is coming along which is changing the way you will connect a lot of these systems. Now let's say I want to connect up all these various things, a keyboard and a mouse, to this computer. I first connect up the mouse, all very fine. Now I take up the keyboard and suddenly find I don't have a place to connect it to. Then I realize that the single connector is marked with keyboard and mouse. So I take this out and I find that this is too large. So I look for an adapter, and this is called a DIN to PS2 adapter, which is available in the market for 100 rupees, but you've got to know about that. And then I find that this one fits in beautifully into the system. But what about the mouse? This also has what's called a nice round little PS2 connector, and there is no other PS2 port. For this I have to look for another connector, another 100 rupees, and this one looks like this. So when I put this together, I click it shut, attach it to the system, and everything fits in fine and it works. The next step is the monitor. I take up the monitor cable and connect it to this. I find that I've already got 3 cables and 2 different kind of connectors to worry about. But this is a fact of life today. If you take a PC, look behind it, all the different ports that you see, sometimes they're color-coded and labeled, very often they're not. But you've got to match the right port to the right connector. And out here, we'll take a look at some of these connectors and see how we can get around them. Now, one of the earliest connectors on notebook computers was this, a Pcmcia card. You take this card, push this inside the Pcmcia slot on your notebook, and a whole lot of things from modems to notebook, network connections to sound cards, lots of other things actually connect up to your notebook. But for most of them, you need something else. You need yet another wire and a special type of head, and this whole thing is called a dongle. Now this makes life more difficult for notebook users because apart from carrying their notebook, they have to carry a mess of wires. That was the first thing that began to change. Devices like this took on all kinds of additional connectors. For instance, the simple extension jack that lets you take up an ordinary telephone cable and plug it straight into this. Now, this is called an X jack. Similarly, there are other connectors that let you plug a telephone cable straight into this. What this meant was that a notebook user did not anymore have to carry around a mess of cables with him. He could go up to any place where there was a telephone wire and actually take that wire and plug it into his notebook. The second innovation to come to portable computers was this little port here called an infrared port. And what I do with it is I take up my palm top, and anytime I need to transfer data between this and this, I don't mess around with cables at all. I switch it on, go to infrared sync, point it at the notebook, and press start. And within a second, it's connected. Now this is another remarkable innovation. This is not meant for long distance communication because I can't sit across the road and try to connect to a notebook or a PC somewhere else. But I can sit right next to it or walk up to a computer somewhere, point my device at it, it could be a printer, it could be a palm top, and know that a connection will take place, and I'll be able to do that without fiddling with wires, which takes a lot of doing. You have to carry those wires around with you, then try them out, see if they fit, then you suddenly realize you don't have that connector. Instead, now a lot of handheld devices have this infrared port. It's called an IRDA device. You point it at it and you can transfer data at up to 4 megabits per second. And the nice thing is it's coming in into more and more devices, including into cell phones. Unfortunately for most PC users, there are so few devices which have infrared that most desktop PCs or home PCs do not have infrared ports at all. So does that mean you always have to live with a mess of wires? Not really. Just a few weeks ago on this program, we saw an iMac computer, and we saw that it has just one little wire connecting it to the keyboard and the mouse, and very little else in terms of wires dangling loose from it. There was, of course, a power cable, but that was all. The iMac did it with a USB port. Then again, a few weeks after that, we saw a webcam, which was extremely easy to plug in. You simply plugged in straight into the PC, and again, that was with a USB port. So what is this USB thing? USB is the universal serial bus. And the interesting thing about it is that most PCs today ship with a USB port. In fact, this notebook has absolutely no other ports. It doesn't have a serial port or a parallel port. Those are separate on the port strip. But it does have a USB port. The other interesting thing about this is that most devices today are shipping with some USB options. What this means is, well, take modems. If you buy a modem today, it's very likely you will expect to connect it to a bulky power adapter and then to another serial cable which will connect to your PC, again a mess of wires. Not this one. This is a USB modem. What it means is that there is a port outside it which takes a cable like this. With this cable, which plugs into any USB device, including this particular port, you simply connect it into the notebook. I need to put on the notebook computer, hunt for this, plug it in, and that's it. The PC says USB device found, installing software for it, and it's ready to go. Now, USB is meant to be a universal way to connect devices. It can let you connect up to 127 such devices one after the other without bothering to set up cables to install software. It's auto-install. I was able to plug it in. I can pull it out again even when the PC is running, and it will simply continue to work with the device, and if the device is gone, it will simply stop working with the device, and then you can put it back in and it will resume. That's the marvel of USB, and most devices in the future will use a technology like USB to connect up a plethora of devices. And what you will have is not a mess of wires, but a single USB cable connecting up to the devices. So if you're buying a computer today and any other devices like modems, do look out for options which let you buy USB. See you next week.